In order to start a game of Shape Shyft, take all of the shape cards out of the deck, shuffle them, place 5 of them in a row, add the remaining back into the deck, shuffle the deck, and deal out 5 cards to each player. The player that has the highest total shape card value goes first. In this situation, the player down here has the highest shape value at 13, so they take the first turn. In order to start a turn, a player draws until they have 5 cards on their hand. Note that if this is your first turn, or any player's first turn, you do not draw any cards since you already have 5 cards in your hand, but for every other turn, you draw until you have 5. Every card in a player's hand must be played if able. Any unused cards at the end of the turn are placed face up on the table near the player and added back to their hand during their next draw. So let's draw 5 cards out. There are 2 things a player can do on their turn. They can replace a shape card in the public area with a new shape card from their hand, or they can attach a shift card to a shape card in the public area. Let's go over first how to replace a shape card. Let's take the 2 here. Now we can replace a shape card in the public area as long as it's the same shape as the one you're planning on replacing it with. So in this case, the 2 is a square, and we see that we have an 8 here that's also a square. So we would be able to take this card, put it in the discard pile, and replace it with a 2. Then we have the 5. Similarly, it's a circle, and we see we have a circle here. We can replace the circle with the 5. And the 2 as well. We can replace the 5 with the 2. You can also replace a shape card in the public area with a new shape card from your hand with a shape that is present on any attached shift card as well. So in this example, if we look here, we have an attached shift card to the 6. There's a circle, but there's also a hexagon and a square. So I can replace it with the 5, like normal since it's the same shape. But we can also replace that 6 up here with a 2, because the 2 is a square, and there's also a square present on a shift card. So we can take this and change it with the 2. Similarly, with the 5, we can also replace the 5 not only with the 2 in the hand, but we can also replace it with the 5, because there's circles present on a shift card attached to the shape card. Here's how to attach a shift card. You can attach a shift card to a shape card in the public area as long as it shares at least one shape in common with the card you're attaching it to, and also the orientation of the shift card is correct and legal. Let's look at this one. We can attach this shift card only to the 10, because the 10 is a triangle, and this card also has a triangle, and that's the only shape on this shift card, so this is the only valid placement for it. Now we also have to keep in mind the orientation of the card, because it may need to be rotated. In this case, we see here the word odd is pointing upward, and the word even is pointing downward. And because the 10 is an even number, the card needs to be rotated to this orientation in order to be attached correctly. Now let's look at this card. We see this card has a hexagon and an octagon on it, so it is able to be placed attached to either the 5 or the 9. But again, we have to keep in mind the orientation of the card. If we were to attach it to the 5 here, the 5 is an octagon, so this would be the correct placement. But if we were to attach it to the 9, it would need to be rotated because the 9 is a hexagon, and the hexagon needs to be pointed upwards. Here's how to collect a shape card. A shape card is collected when the number of individual shapes that match the shape card on all shift cards attached to it equal the number value on all the shape cards. So here's what that looks like. We have our hand here, and let's start attaching some cards. We can attach this card to the 5 or to the 6 because there's a circle and an octagon present. Let's attach it to the 6. If we attach it to the 6, it is in perfectly good orientation to attach to because the circle is pointed upwards. So we attach it like this. Now we'll see we have 1, 2, 3, 4 circles attached to this shape card so far. And we can keep attaching shift cards. So let's attach this shift card to the 6 as well. Since it has a circle on it, we can attach it to the circle. But in this case, we would need to rotate the card because the 6 is an even number and the even must be pointed upwards. So we attach it like this. And now, once we've attached this card, we can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 circles attached to the circle. Since this number is a 6, and there's 6 circles, the player that played this card gets to take this shape card and add it to their collection. Similarly, we can look at this card, and it can be attached only to the 8 currently. So we'll go ahead and attach it to the 8. And it is in the correct orientation since the 8 is the number 6 through 10. Now we'll notice that we have 2 squares attached to this 8. And if we have our hand here, if we remember from attaching shape cards, we can freely change out the 8 for a 2 because it is also a square. And once this 2 is replaced, the 2 matches the 2 squares on the attached shift cards. So that means this shape card is collected and added to that player's collection. And all of these cards that are left over go to the discard pile. Notice that after a shape card is collected, there's an empty space in the public area. That space must be filled before a player can change out another shape card with a shape card in their hand. So if this is our hand, and I wanted to play the 2, normally I would be able to replace the 5 because it is also an octagon. However, since there's a gap here, this card must be placed here first before any other cards can be changed. When a player collects their 5th shape card, the last turn of the round is triggered. That player plays the remaining cards they have left in their hand, and after their turn is over, every other player gets one last turn. Note that at this time, because you're playing out your hand, it is still possible to collect additional shape cards, so you can have more than 5. At the end of a round, players add up the total number value on all shape cards they collected during the round. At the end of scoring, this point total gets added to a player's cumulative point total, and the player with the highest point total at the end of the game wins. There are 8 shift cards in the deck that have a star shape on them. The star is treated as one of every shape when counting towards placement and collecting, but it counts as no shape when you're changing shape values. So I can attach this to any shape up here and it'll count as 1 as everything. So for the sake of this example, let's attach it to the 5 here, which is an octagon. Now this counts as 1 octagon, 1 hexagon, 1 triangle, 1 circle, and 1 square all at the same time. So if we wanted to play the 10 shape card here and replace it with one of the shapes here, we would not be able to replace it with the 5 here, because the star does not actually count as a triangle when replacing shapes, only for the total value. So the only place we could actually play the 10 would be on top of the 3. A star shift card can also get you additional points. If a star card was the final card played that collected a shape card, the player that played it may rotate the collected shape card 90 degrees in their collection, and they get double points for that shape card. So let's take this star card here in our hand, and we can attach it to the 2 here. Now we'll notice that we have 1 square here and 1 star, and the star, as stated before, counts as 1 as every shape. So we have 1 square here and 1 square because of the star. And because we have a square down here and a square right here, that's 2 squares. And since we have the number 2 here and it's a square, we get to collect this card. And then since this card was the card that we played last in order to collect this shape, we can rotate it 90 degrees and place it in our collection. And then once we count the points at the end, this would count as 4 points instead of 2 points. Let's say we have this scenario here. Well, notice if we look at the 2, we have 2 squares at the top plus the one we get from the star since it counts as one of everything. So that's 3 squares total. What we can do is we can take a card that has a negative on it, turn it to the correct orientation, and place it on here like so. Now we have 1, 2, 3 from the star, and we have a minus here. So it actually subtracts a square, a hexagon, and a circle from the shape values. So now we have 3 from here minus 1 square, which is 2 squares. So placing this card like this actually collects the 2.